Uhuru, Mariah.
Uhuru, comrade.
Uhuru, we are live.
We are live. Come on in and join us.
Yes, man. We are, this is episode 12? Wow.
Wow,
I felt
12
like episode
already.
yesterday.
12 already. Wow.
We've been going strong with this podcast, and we're already back with episode 12. This is what, season 2, episode 12, right?
Season 2 of the podcast. Wow, we're here.
Yeah,
Come on in and join us. Come on in, you guys, and join us. Tell your friends, share it, join us. Come on in.
Hit that like, hit that subscribe, make that little bell ring so that every time we're live, you get a notification straight to your phone. Because I know you're trying to be live here with us and look at our beautiful faces as we talk facts at you. So, and then you could also, talk facts back at us. It could be a whole discussion. So
let's do it. You heard her. Let's do it. Come on in.
All right, we're getting comrades in the chat. Uhuru. Uhuru means freedom. And in the Uhuru movement, we say Uhuru all the time because what? Freedom is on our minds 24/7. Man, that's such a banger of a line,
Come on in, comrades. I see you filling it up. Come on in.
Yeah. I don't know how it is where you're at right now, but in Virginia, the weather has been calming down so much more now. I remember when it was for 2 weeks straight in the 90s, and I just, physically given up going outside, showing my face anywhere because it was just too much. It was too much. But lately, it's been in the 60s, 70s, and I'm back outside. We are outside. We are sitting outside. We are outside.
Well, down south it stays like this is our stormy season, and we'll talk about it when it comes to these hurricanes and storms. But the heat does not go away. So yeah, you need to send us some of that good weather.
Yeah, no, I wish we could, but I'm gonna keep that for Virginia. Thank you very much because Lord have mercy. So bad. But yeah, and classes are starting soon too, and I don't know why I do this to myself. It's like this sadistic thing of just going to school every semester, and I'm not prepared, but here we are once again, and it's about to be September, so
that's that. Back to school.
Yeah. But yeah, we see some folks. I guess we might as well go ahead and get started with our show. Laughs in California. And do you see that comment for Comrade Don? That's hilarious. Yeah, the weather there is always nice, so they never have to worry about that. But yeah, so we can go ahead and get started. I want to welcome back everyone to the One Africa Worldview podcast. I am one of your co-hosts and managing editor for the Burning Spear newspaper, Soliana.
Yeah, and I'm your co-host, Dr. Mariah, Promotions Director for Black Power 96.3 FM radio, where One Africa Worldview is now airing.
And we're on the FM airwaves. I mean, that in itself is a victory. But yeah, as mentioned, this is the One Africa Worldview podcast, bringing you critical news and analysis from the African Internationalist perspective. And you already know we're going to recap that for you as we do every episode. African internationalism is a theory developed by our leader, Chairman Omali Shatella, to sum up and define the conditions of our dispersed African nation and to establish the trajectory toward our liberation, right? It's not just a theory, but the theory centers colonialism as the primary contradiction that not only we as Black people face, no matter where we are, but one that the entire world is grappling with, right? Suffering from. And, Chairman Omali has defined this global parasitic political and economic relationship because in the party we do understand that the political and economic are one, right? They're intertwined. He defines this political and economic relationship as a colonial mode of production, establishing the starting point of capitalism with the colonial assault on Africa, Asia, the so-called Americas, and elsewhere. And I just also want to say I really do appreciate colonial mode of production because it's an active sort of process, right? It's not just a thing a phenomenon that happens, but an active sort of system that we're living, under today as well. So that such a revolutionary sort of concept that Chairman has put out there. So, more about this theory and worldview can be understood by reading the Burning Spear newspaper.
Yeah, the Burning Spear newspaper and just that colonial assault that you mentioned. That's something that's happened, something that the chairman has brought a theory to, and there's something that just that understanding of what it takes there. And we'll talk about that more. And today's show is actually centered around just the updates of that movement and doing it for ourselves and what's happening out there in St. Louis where that tornado hit. And we talked about this earlier and just the devastation that north side, that African community, our community there. And it happened way back on May 16th of this year. And what kind of relief have they received? None. And it's just that city responded with just heavier police occupation. And, what good is that going to do? That predatory land grabs that they do and just that assault on the African community. And our African community actually organized and our own emergency relief response to this. And we'll hear more testimony about that from the affected community, and we'll also highlight the forces who have been working tirelessly to serve these people. And that's just really coming up in our primary objective on today's show. So we'll kick off our program with the Whirlwind Weekly Updates, giving you our African Internationalist analysis on the day's top headlines. So, Comrade Ciliano, what's on the latest on the settler colony of Israel and its attacks on Palestinians?
Uhuru Mariah, thank you so much. Yes, so to kick off our Whirlwind Weekly Update, catch me in the whirlwind, as Comrade Marcus Garvey has said. But yeah, so last week, we reported on how Israel has been, actively blocking aid boats from entering Gaza and further just worsening the already immiserated condition and, straight up starvation and genocide that Palestinians are suffering by the hands of the Israeli government, right? And it's gotten to the point where even, pro-Zionist or, Zionist hardliners are coming out more directly critiquing Israel. And this, of course, is by no means an outright condemnation of what's going on or going so far as to say, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free or free Palestine. Like none of that is happening. That's not within their political scope at all, but it is something that's happening. But we're hearing that Prime Minister Netanyahu say that he wants to, completely take over Gaza and force Hamas into a confrontation. And the Israeli military general, on the other hand, was actually disagreeing with Netanyahu on the grounds that the Israeli military needs a break, that they're just too tired out and they need to gather their strength basically, and that a ceasefire would be needed before something like this can be taken on, at least to the head of the military. But despite this disagreement, the Israeli cabinet actually signed off on Netanyahu's plans. And so neighboring Arab countries like Egypt and Jordan have also come out more harshly against Hamas, condemning the October 7, 2023, attack on Israel, as well as imploring Hamas to give up control and to demilitarize, with administrative power being handed to the Palestinian Authority, which is a West Bank entity that's been in control in Gaza. They want the Palestinian Authority to basically be in power in post-war Gaza, basically. But despite this regressive stand, because we saw the Arab countries be more in support of Hamas and the struggle early on, despite this sort of again regression, Netanyahu was clear, right? Like he doesn't want Hamas or the Palestinian Authority to have any administrative power in Gaza were they to reach the end of the war in the coming months. He might not be outright saying it, but his goal is going to look a lot like the sort of final, completion of the Zionist project by completely overtaking Gaza, right? Or rather, he's using euphemistic language by saying that we're going to free Gaza from Hamas. That's how it's being characterized, right? And the U.S. Is also attempting to, distance itself from Netanyahu's strategy. But again, the reality is there is no Israel without the U.S., right? There's no military capacity in Israel if not for, the U.S., Israel sort of being the love child of the U.S., right? In Europe, in control of the Middle East. And this is why, the U.S. has poured just billions, and we're talking about billions with a B, right? We're poured billions into Israel for the purpose of wiping out Palestinians. Before there was Israel, there was the settler colonial project of the U.S., which also rests on stolen indigenous land after nearly decimating and disappearing indigenous people. So there's that shared history that that U.S. as a settler colony and Israel as a settler colony have. So that shared interest we see being pushed on Palestinian people. And Netanyahu's latest initiatives has, again, like I mentioned, invited a lot of criticism from many different sides of the question, but it should be of no surprise that this is where we have come to, because, again, if history really has shown us anything, this has always been the plan, right? The logic of settler colonialism requires the tight control and rejection of self-determination to a whole group of people. And the Palestinians' right to self-determination is going to be antagonistic, and it's seen as a threat to Israel as a state, because, again, Israel's secured its own self-determination at the expense of the Palestinian people. So it's this, antagonistic dialectic relationship that we're seeing here. So this has always been the case. And, if, what's more is that the everyday living conditions of Palestinians under Israeli control has also made that clear. So we're just seeing the sort of realization of that, despite the sort of doublespeak that we see being used by Netanyahu.
Wow, you heard, comrade. Just as you mentioned, this has really always been the case. So, and we don't need to have any more evidence of that. We know that there's a relationship between the U.S. and Israel, and the fact that genocide, just as you mentioned, that settler colonialism, they have to have that for anything to work, for it to be effective. So we have heard that now the U.S. is actually pouring billions of dollars, as you mentioned, billions of dollars, but also now into billions of dollars into ICE, into those ICE roundups and imprisoning Mexican and indigenous people. And it's just currently Trump is trying to really deploy now with our military to National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. What is that? It's just all of this is going on. And, you've got more information on this, right? And just some of that recent moves, that plan that U.S. President Trump is making, right?
Yeah,
let us know about that.
I didn't go in the city today. I know I'm based in Virginia, but I didn't go to DC. But yeah, the news cycle here has just been all about Trump sort of letting loose the National Guard on DC because of quote unquote crime too, right? And now everyone and their mom is sort of, or at least when it comes to reporters, talking about how crime has actually gone down in DC, despite what the excuses that Trump is using to unleash the National Guard and ICE on people here in DC. But yeah, that's absolutely right. And in relation to Trump too, Trump and Putin specifically are set to meet in Alaska next Friday or this Friday on the 15th over what to do about what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. And the meeting announcement was actually also made shortly after Trump made comments about how Ukraine might need to seriously consider ceding territories to Russia, right? To use Trump's own words, he said, quote, "It's very complicated. There will be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both," unquote. Now I don't know how to imitate him, but not to try to do a deep voice at least. But more, specifically though, there are reports that Trump is gonna push Ukraine to cede the Donbass region to Russia, while Russia also retains Crimea. And this was an area that was annexed by Russia back in 2014. And so, the prospect of this meeting, as well as, Trump's earlier feeble threats about moving submarines toward Russia, is just one way that, Trump and the U.S. are sort of coming to terms with Russia's victory in this war. And we actually have a clip from geopolitical analyst and journalist Danny Hefong, who had a bit more to say about this back on Saturday.
The idea that I guess his feelings were hurt, or he didn't like the words that Medvedev used or whatever, and he decides to send 2 nuclear subs off the coast of Russia. What do you make of that?
Well, on the surface, it looks like Trump is frustrated with Dmitry Medvedev. But the truth of the matter is that what he's really frustrated with is Russia's approach in general. It is my estimation that Donald Trump believed that when he came into office, he would be able to sit down with his Russian counterparts and essentially give them a silent ultimatum, which was take a ceasefire, stop this war because I say so. But Russia and Vladimir Putin did no such thing. They had they had absolutely no intention of settling this conflict on terms dictated by the United States. And that's why we saw during the early negotiation process, no progress made. The United States hasn't even sent any kind of terms to Russia that would entail a kind of peace settlement. The intention from the very beginning was to force Russia to capitulate, and Russia, given that it's winning the war, would never do such a thing. And so it really is Vladimir Putin's approach, the fact that the leadership of Russia is calmly, quietly going about their business, moving forward on their objectives in the special military operation, and doing so in a manner that is very, very successful, both on the battlefield and in the larger political realm, which has Donald Trump going so mad.
Yep, Donald Trump going so mad is right. And again, that meeting is this meeting that's coming up is just an example of just the plans that the U.S. had not going the way like they planned it, right? Like Danny mentioned, they when Trump came into office, it was about being this hard statesman and forcing Putin to go into this deal and enforce the U.S., NATO, EU sort of interest on him. But the fact that Trump is having to sit down and meet with him is just such a blatant show of the fact that that's just not how it's going down for him, right? So in 2014, right, was also the same year that the democratically elected president of Ukraine, I believe Yanukovych, at the time was overthrown by the US backed coup, and this was a really important contextualizing event for this whole war what we're seeing now. And in the wake of that, Chairman Omali Yeshitela was actually among the first voices to really articulate what this war was, what it meant. And it was imperialism in crisis, right? The US and the EU and NATO trying to push, again, further and further east into Russia, using Ukraine as proxy and antagonizing Russia at every turn. Like they knew what kind of message it was going to send to Russia, to Putin. And they're sort of acting as if like Putin retaliating and saying, well, you're not just about to, do that, on my territory is as somehow surprising, but this was coming. And imperialism again continues to be in crisis because this war again is exposing just how bad of a shape the U.S. is in when it comes to this, and it's attempting to look strong at the face of this prospect of this defeat, with this whole again threatening to send submarine over Twitter, right? And we have another clip for you just on that note as well.
Very I think the point here has been, and I've seen some who were very hopeful about Trump coming into office and perhaps reversing some
including
of Biden's
me.
wars.
I was.
I think, but I think that we're seeing for some who were very high on Donald Trump is that there was a belief that because Donald Trump occupied a certain position, because he was so attacked by certain elements of the establishment, that he would, for the sake of his own legitimacy and his need to look strong and to actually hold a kind of popular mandate for at least a little while, maybe months, maybe into the first couple years of his administration, that's all been burst asunder, because what I think was not factored in was the fact that the United States is actually in a much worse position in terms of its foreign policy and its role as a hegemon than perhaps was assumed when he took office.
All right, that was again Danny Haifong in a post from last Saturday. And I also want to mention, right, in a May 2014 article, 2014 was a big year when talking about this war, but in an article that was published in The Spear shortly after this coup, it was stated, quote, "The call from Eastern Europe to join the West is a call to join the European nation under the leadership of the U.S. It is a call for access to wealth stolen from the colonies in Africa, the Americas, and elsewhere," unquote. So the party's always been clear on what this war means for colonized people, right? And this was also among the things that got the Uhuru movement attacked by the FBI, because they cited this position as evidence of us being Russian spies, even though that article very much lets you know whose side we were on. We've always been on African people's side. We've always worked for Black people, not Russia, right? But yeah, in response to this, scary specter of meeting, though, the one taking place this Friday, between Trump and Putin, Ukrainian and other European leaders met with other American and British officials outside of London on this past Friday for fear of being, sidelined from the conversation, as the New York Times reported. Basically, they're sort of scared that Trump is going to completely, sell Ukraine out to Russia at this meeting. And we're seeing a lot of, European prime ministers take to social media, which has been a popular medium for geopolitics, this time around. But they're taking to social media to air their grievances about how, quote, Ukraine's future cannot be decided without the Ukrainians, and that sovereignty and territorial integrity are the cornerstones of global stability, unquote. And this is coming from the same Western civilization that denied such sovereignty and territorial integrity to African people and all colonized people of the world, right? And even more saliently, whose own sense of European identity was consolidated upon this, multi-pronged, centuries-long assault on Africa and the rest of the world. So I just wanted to mention that. But Comrade Mariah, for the Southeast region of the U.S., it's also about to get particularly active in other ways. So can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Comrade Uhuru family. August 20th, less than 10 days away from now, will actually mark that 20th anniversary since that deadly Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, Louisiana. And this is hurricane season, as we talked about earlier in the show, and it's here, y'all. And in the Southeast, it's something that's really real, and it's time for our African and our working class communities to get ready. And that means it's time to prepare. Like I said, get ready for what's ahead. And we look at history, it really shows us that one thing is clear, that when it comes to the U.S. government, they're not going to come and save us. So when it comes to Hurricane Katrina, to Hurricane Ian, we've seen it happen over and over again, just real slow, inadequate, and just really just deadly. So their so-called relief, when that happens, it's nothing. So we cannot wait on FEMA. We can't wait on the state either. We must organize, and we must prepare ourselves and get ready, because our survival is in our own hands, y'all. So this season, meteorologists are actually warning us that it's going to be a pretty active one too. So that means that storms with those high winds, flooding, rains, and just that potential for some really, really serious damage when it comes to that, some catastrophic damage, actually. And I mean, just preparation is not optional when it comes to this, y'all. It is really a necessity. So to get prepared, just want to give you just a few things here, and just stuff that you can start doing when it comes to preparation. And you can do this stuff today. So just one of the first things there is build up an emergency supply kit. When it comes to this means bottled water, some non-perishable foods, flashlights, you get yourself some batteries, some matches, lighters, just candles, stuff that you can light up with there, and ice and coolers, so you'll be able to keep things cold there, and then some gas or charcoal grills, because we know when the storms comes, the electricity goes out, so you want to have a way there you can continue to cook after that storm. So you want to make sure that you're stocking up all the stuff of the first aid kit, all the Band-Aids, all the wraps, all the ointments and stuff you need there. Stock up on the medications, y'all, too. Do not forget about medications. Also, gather all of the documents, all of your documents that you need, any kind of birth certificates, social security cards, all that stuff that you'll need in case something happens there. And you want to stick those in waterproof sandwich bags. And that's the safest, and that is the most easiest way to keep those. So just something else to look at. We also want to make sure that you are securing your home. So when it comes to that, you want to check all around, check those roofs, check those foundations, those window sills. You want to make sure that you board up those windows if needed. Also, clear out the gutters. That's what they're there for. You want to clear those out and make sure they're ready when those storms come. You want to bring in anything outside also. Any stuff that could fly, any stuff that could cause damage there, pick that stuff up and put it away. Anything that the wind would throw, anything that will blow away, just anything, like I said, that will cause damage, you want to make sure that it's secured. And then also you want to check out your hardware stores and just any kind of organized city, just anything there that you can get these supplies for, just to find the materials needed to secure your home. And when it comes to that, maybe sandbags and things of that sort. So just make sure you're paying attention to your community radio stations and things of that sort, just to see where you can go to get those kind of supplies. And it's just really important to make sure that, you can not everyone is going to be able to evacuate. So you want to make sure that, if you are there, that you have your home secure. But then if you also going to evacuate, go ahead and make that plan. Don't wait until the time when a storm comes. Go ahead and have it ahead. Know that if the storm is coming from a certain direction, you're headed to so-and-so's home, whether it's a family member, whether it's a hotel in a city that you're familiar with. Just go ahead and get your plans together, y'all. Don't wait to the last minute. Also, when it comes to those storms, we know that one of the first things that go is gasoline. And we need gasoline in the cars to go anywhere. So make sure you're stocking up on that gas, gassing up all those cars, putting gasoline in any extra of the generators or any of those sorts of things that you have around the house, just to make sure that you're ready when that you first hear the hurricane is coming. And then also decide on a meeting place, because when the storms come, we know electricity goes out, our mobile phone goes out. So then what happens when it comes to communication? Make sure you know where your family is, have a way to communicate, come up with a plan to meet in case something like this does happen, y'all. It's just really so important to go ahead and prepare and go ahead and get ready. Hurricane Katrina showed us that, y'all. And just remember, in the middle of a storm, that power is out, how we said. Those cell towers, they're down. So where can you turn? Turn to your community radio. It's really a lifeline. Like in St. Pete, Florida, that means Black Power 96.3. And we will be here with you during these vital, life-saving moments, giving you vital, life-saving updates. Okay, y'all? So comrades, hurricanes, they're something serious. They're natural, but these disasters, they do become political. And they hit the hardest where poverty is deepest and infrastructure is what? Weakest. So it's not an accident here. That's on purpose every time, y'all. So if we're not informed, we have to get informed. We have to get organized. We have to get prepared, and we can protect each other. We have to get ready. So don't wait until these winds start blowing to make these plans. Prepare now, y'all. Spread the word, and let's keep our community safe and strong.
Uhuru, yeah, no, thank you so much for this really great breakdown on hurricane preparedness. I know that last year was really active with, Hurricanes Helene and Milton, and like you mentioned, I know the news tends to scaremonger, but we're already hearing, reports from meteorologists about just how there's like above average activity that they're picking up from the Atlantic Ocean like this time around. And, we're already hearing about Tropical Storm Erin, I think, that might turn into a hurricane. I don't know if it's been mentioned like where it might hit landfall, but it's like there's a chance that it's going to turn into a hurricane. So it's really critical that we have this information at hand. There are still places right now dealing with the effects of these storms. So we really do encourage you to take these steps, even if you may not be in an area that that gets hurricanes. Like with the way that climate change is affecting us, like you can't be like, oh, I'm in this part of the world, I'm gonna be okay. Like that kind of safety is just not guaranteed anymore. And ultimately we need to be prepared to self-deploy in the event that our communities are, again, are heavily impacted, right? So, speaking of self-deploy, that's exactly what the African community of North St. Louis did following this mile-wide tornado that ripped through the city on May 16, and it resulted in just deaths and unimaginable damage to homes and businesses. So we can dive into our primary objective to discuss that a bit more. Hurrah, comrade, take us through it.
Yeah, let's do it. And just to let you know, we covered this initial aftermath back when this happened. And that was on season 1 of One Africa Worldview. And now we're just bringing you some updates here, just to kind of do a brief recap. The National Weather Service said that they believe the tornado was an EF3 with winds between 100 and 165 miles an hour, y'all. And it was up to a mile wide at times. So more than 80,000 buildings went without power, and a death toll estimated in the 20s here. And entire roofs were ripped off of homes and other properties, which is damaged, including the Black Power Blueprint properties and the Uhuru movement's personal homes. So the concentration of this devastation is in the North Side African community, and it's the Uhuru movement that declared to bring power back to the North St. Louis through Black community self-determination, y'all. And the African People's Socialist Party was actually, through the Black Power blueprint and other means, immediately organized a relief. And they got on the ground, y'all, this relief response, setting up drop-off sites for some food there, giving out the water to the community, diapers, and just really all the other essentials that's needed during these storms. Just setting up charging stations for our mobile devices so we could communicate, and just went out into community on the ground to ensure the safety of our people and the well-being of our people. They prepared and distributed fresh but hot meals and just everything there. In that community, they really came out. The community came together, and despite the losses, they were really celebrating this unity, and they came together by organizing these relief efforts. And just when it looks at that tornado, St. Louis Mayor Kara Spencer, she really initiated a curfew on the Black people and a land grab through these forced removals and power cuts. No help, y'all. And there was no organized effort by the city to provide the people with immediate relief. So including any kind of basic living necessities just to get them through to the next day. So just as I mentioned, the African People's Socialist Party and the Black Power blueprint, they stepped up, y'all, and we're doing it for ourselves. And it was really like just the city is sitting there on millions of dollars that could have been immediate help pouring into this north side for recovery. But instead, the people's own time and dime, Africans began organizing our own emergency response.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I do want to mention too, like Black Power Blueprint, like social media, Instagram, Facebook particularly, has been so good at putting out what the news won't cover. And if you just follow one of those pages, like if you follow them on Instagram, you'll get really cool updates about everything that's going on and just how powerfully the community has really come together to confront the city. And again, sitting on so much money that the African community is just not seeing a dime of, even at the wake of this terrible storm that hit the city. So we're going to talk about some of that, some of the work that organizations like the Black Power Blueprint, the Northside Independent Neighborhood Association, or NINA, and Youth Builders did to move the African community forward, right? And we'll take a look at this interview conducted by Westbrook and Christopher Gladney, who is president of NINA.
The day of the tornado?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, we heard it. It came from the back. My son was in the back. I was in the front part of the house on the computer. And he called me, and as he was calling me, running to the front, I stood up, and when I looked up at him, the back of the house was falling. And we made it to the front hall as far as we can go, and it blew us out through a wall onto this lot.
Damn near 2 months later, the only response we got from the city is a dumpster.
It's a dumpster.
And pretty much that y'all had to beg for it.
Had to beg for it. The alderman didn't come by, speak to us. The mayor didn't come by, speak to nothing.
That's sad.
Yeah.
They tell us not to mobilize and don't go out there and it's dangerous. But can you tell the camera, is this the people or is this the city helping you?
This is the people, the community.
Be on the city about, hey, where's the money, for people to rebuild?
Right.
That's the biggest thing. There's
Yes.
no money. They've been talking about the 30 million for I don't know how long.
Right.
Nothing has come up with yet. They say next week.
Next week.
And it's always been that next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anything that you need, please don't hesitate to contact us.
I will not, and I appreciate y'all so much for the support. So much.
Wow, it's just really so powerful there just to see those words on their own and just what's actually transpiring on the ground. They're bringing out, what do they bring to us? A dumpster, a damn dumpster. That's what they think of us. We're trash. So you see it right here.
Exactly.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and yeah, like if you think about it, right, the tornado hit other parts of St. Louis, right? This isn't a tornado that made sure to just hit this specific district in St. Louis or specific, like it hit other parts, but it was the North Side where majority Africans live that suffered the hardest. And let's talk about, how colonial policy in St. Louis contributed to this outcome, because this isn't a fluke, right? This isn't a case of like, well, we can't control where the storm hit. No, because again, it hit other places, but why is it that where African people are located was where there's, no safety net, no sort of response from the city, no sort of support? Like, this is a very sort of determined event that happened, right? So yeah, there was the Let It Rot plan, where the city literally allowed for the Black community to deteriorate. And then there's the latest destruction of half the North Side to make way for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, right? And Comrade Mariah, you have had, some firsthand experience with how a weather disaster displaced Africans from New Orleans after Katrina, right? But before there was a hurricane, there was the orchestrated disaster of gentrification, police terror, and poverty for Africans in Louisiana.
Yeah, that happens every time. And we discussed it here on the show before, and just that city's response, or really just the lack of a response there, and just really what has turned things around on the ground has been the African community's response themselves. And when it comes to that, just having an anti-colonial organization like the African People's Socialist Party on the ground, African people have been able to really come together and rally together, help rebuild the city with our own hands, y'all. And while at the same time confronting these city officials, and specifically that mayor, Kara Spencer, for the total neglect when it comes to what's happening here that has been perpetrated against the North Side Black community in St. Louis.
Right. And, as Kumba just put it in the chat, crying Kara, crocodile tears. Right. And there was also a comment before that he put in that I missed to read, but he had said the city had to stop the town halls because they could not deal with the heat. And I could testify to that because, as I mentioned, Black Power Blueprint's IG page has been on fire with like putting out just how the community really did rally together and just told them step by step, like, where's this Rams money that you guys have been getting that the North Side has not been seeing, again, a dime of? Like, they're not broke, right? This isn't an issue of feasibility. This isn't an issue of oh, our hands are tied. Your hands are tied because you're saying your hands are tied. Like, this is colonialism in action. And like you mentioned, like, an organization like Black Power Blueprint just rallying the community to be able to articulate it in this way, in this united way, has been really powerful. But yeah, like you said, the city has been attempting this, massive land grab too, by, again, using the tornado and its aftermath as an opportunity, right, to, again, further retrench and continue with this gentrifying project. And I know there are some folks that we want to shout out on the ground. We saw a little bit of them, but Comrade Mariah, if you want to shout their name out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to that land grab, it happens every time, comrade. Every time a disaster like this happens, that's when we see them show up. So, I mean, just really want to shout out to our comrades over there on the ground doing it for ourselves. We want to give a shout out to comrades Christopher and Westbrook, and just so many other forces on the ground over there doing this important work, y'all. Community resources, including information, continue to be provided at the weekly Sunday rallies hosted at 4101 West Florissant Avenue over in St. Louis. And this starts at 3 p.m., y'all. And that's not all. We also mentioned NINA. And last week, we covered a dynamic community unity block party that took place there. And despite the fact that the city government is attempting to wipe out the Black community, we continue to push back. And the block party was just that pure anti-colonial defiance.
Yeah, it was so powerful, to see that, again, a community where people like literally lost everything they owned, their childhood homes, all those memories, right, are coming out, stronger, getting organized, and just have been able to do for self. And I wish I was out there because it looked lit. So let's take a brief look at Nina's block party from August 2nd.
Wow, look at that. Doing it for ourselves, y'all. All those beautiful spaces there, and just really powerful to see there. And we do have another video here that we also wanted to share. And this video recognizes the role that the organization Youth Builders has played in that Northside African community. And the video is Comrade Kinje, Vice President of NINA, presenting this recognition on behalf of the African People's Education and Defense Fund.
Today I'm representing the President of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, Ona Zane Ishatella, who is the architect of the Black Power Blueprint, including this beautiful event space, the community center across the street, the basketball court at College and West Florissant, and more. When the EF3 tornado hit our community on May 16th, our people valiantly self-deployed, clearing our streets to the best of our ability, feeding our people, putting tarps on roofs, and removing debris. The African People's Education and Defense Fund is proud to be one of many organizations that had and has boots on the ground to help our people. We appreciate all of the organizations and individuals that have helped our community. Today, we want to particularly salute Youth Builders and Arion Propman Johnson, Youth Builders. This is a real solution to the need of our people who have to face the thousands of homes that have been damaged and outright destroyed. Moreover, the program is bringing lifetime skills in construction and in teamwork to our youth. This is a program with long-term impact on the lives of our people. It teaches and builds pride, unity, and self-reliance. Today, the African People's Education and Defense Fund is contributing $1,000 to Youth Builders to help support this program and the support they're providing to our community. And we call on the city and others to support this program generously. Uhuru, Brother Arion, Uhuru.
Uhuru!
Uhuru! All right, fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm almost in tears because this is our future. And this brother is taking his time to give back, to make sure that every young African child can walk through this community with pride and hold their heads up high, can see the sky and recognize that there is a future. There is a future. And these are the young men and women that are going to rebuild North St. Louis. They're going to make it better. They're going to make it more beautiful. They're going to make us proud, and they're going to continue to be strong. Thank you so much. I'm so proud of each and every one of you. I love you all. Great work. Uhuru! Uhuru!
Wow. That was so moving. And I'm one of those people that if you start crying or if your voice starts shaking, my voice gonna start shaking. I'm gonna start crying too, So that was so
Wow, so powerful, Deputy Chair. Wow. And that is the future. You heard Deputy Chair. That is the future there. I mean, Uhuru, comrades.
Yeah, I believe that was Comrade Kenge in place for Deputy Chair. But yes, I unite. This movement is the future. And what we're seeing in St. Louis is the blueprint, right? We say Black Power Blueprint because it is a blueprint for what we can achieve as African people everywhere we're located, as long as we're organized and under an anti-colonial strategy. So I just really loved that video. But yeah, so it's about that time. It's time for us now to move into our For the Culture segment. But we're, not going nowhere. We're staying right here in St. Louis, because as we talk about all this great work happening and what the city has done to try and intervene, we must also recognize that St. Louis is home to some just incredible, impactful African culture. So, Comrade Mariah, why don't you go ahead and kick us off for the culture?
Oh, yes. Now, today, like you said, we took that trip up that Mississippi River right to St. Louis, and now we'll talk about a little bit about the history of that Black music when it comes to Black music in America. And St. Louis is one of those cities you really have to name. And it's a city where the sound, it has something all of its own. And the African working class, they helped to shape that sound of the nation, from the blues music to the jazz, to the rock and roll, even to the hip hop. So it's also a city with a deep connection to African migration, y'all. And when it comes to that, it was a stop for so many of us during that great migration, when our people left the South seeking better jobs, a safer life, and just a chance to dream bigger here. And when they came to St. Louis, they brought their music, they brought their poetry, and they brought their art, and it transformed it, y'all. So just looking at
Yeah,
here.
that's absolutely right. In the early 1900s, St. Louis was the heartbeat of ragtime music, thanks to Scott Joplin, the king of ragtime. His piano compositions like The Entertainer and Maple Leaf Rag still live on, more than a century later. Then there is Miles Davis, raised just across the river in East St. Louis, whose trumpet redefined, jazz as we know it, right? And we can't forget Chuck Berry, right, whose guitar riffs and stage swagger helped invent rock and roll. And of course, Tina Turner, born Anna Mae Bullock, whose powerful voice and electric performances just made her an international icon.
An icon. And moving on in the 50s, the 60s, and even the 70s, that sound evolving. As you mentioned, Ike and Tina Turner, they brought that high energy, that soul, and just the rock to the stage. And then we had Oliver Sane, wasn't just a musician. He was also a mentor, a producer, and a band leader who nurtured new talent. And then we had Fontella Bass giving us the timeless hit, Rescue Me, a track that still makes people move today, So by the 90s and just really the early 2000s, that music still was coming there. And St. Louis really carved out its place when it comes to hip hop, when it comes to R&B. And we know Nelly and the St. Louis Lunatics, all growing up on that north side of St. Louis, undeniably put the city on the rap map. And even in the new era, we have SZA, who brings that soulful genre-bending sound out of St. Louis to the world stage. And then we have Metro Boomin, who has become one of the most in-demand producers in hip-hop. And then we have Smino, perfectly blends that rap, soul, and funk into something really just unique, all of his own there. Just so much music talent.
Wow, yeah, I did not know all these artists actually, especially like Smino, so I did not know they hailed from St. Louis. So that's really cool. But yeah, St. Louis, it's not just about music, y'all. It's also a literary powerhouse, right? So Maya Angelou was born in the African community of Compton Hill in St. Louis. And she gave the world poetry and memoirs that continue to inspire generations today. We have Ntozake Shanke, creator of Four Color Girls, was born in nearby Trenton, but grew up in St. Louis, bringing a fearless theatrical voice to African womanhood. We also have John Keene, a modern poet and novelist who really keeps the city's literary legacy alive with award-winning work that just challenges and reimagines Black narratives. Today, poets like Justin Philip Reed, who is a National Book Award winner, and Colleen McElroy carry forward that creative flame. Their works speak to just the modern African experience, blending history, politics, and just a deeply personal storytelling as well.
Wow. And of course, there's Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker, born right there in St. Louis and growing up in the Mill Creek Valley neighborhood, she rose to become an international superstar. She was a spy for that French resistance during World War II and a fearless advocate for civil rights, y'all. She embodies that spirit of African creativity and just a bold, revolutionary, and just really just unshakably proud. So, comrades, when we talk about all the history of Black musicians and creatives from St. Louis, we're not just talking about entertainment when it comes to that. We're talking about that cultural and political voice of the African working class. And these artists documented our lives and just really celebrated all the joy and told the truth about our struggles throughout it all. From the piano keys of Scott Joplin to the microphone in Nelly's hand, from Maya Angelou's verses to Josephine Baker's stage lights. It's just really all a part of that same story. African creativity as a weapon of resistance and a celebration of our survival, y'all. So as we honor St. Louis's legacy in this week's Further Culture segment, remember, y'all, the culture, it belongs to us, the people. And just like our ancestors, we must protect it, nurture it, and use it to tell our story on our own terms. Uhuru.
That's absolutely right. And we've covered St. Louis so much. I feel like at this point, the podcast needs to do like a little retreat to St. Louis, really be on the ground. That'd be so cool. But thank you so much for wrapping up for the culture. So we're gonna go ahead and head into our announcements. Giving you info on how to connect with our work on the ground. We're on social media, but that's not where we're based, right? We work in the streets with the people, as you've seen just from what we've covered in this episode. So Mariah, please let us know what is coming up this week.
Yeah. Well, we're going to head into our announcements, y'all, giving you info on how to connect with our work on the ground. You heard, comrade, when we're on social media, but it's not just where we're based. We're out there in the streets, y'all, with the people. So join us on Wednesday, August 13th. You can join the African People's Solidarity Committee for part 2 of a study on the basics of African internationalism. And you don't have to be attended a part 1 to participate in part 2. So join us there and learn why it's in white people's interest to become African internationalists. And this study will be held in person at the Uhuru Solidarity Center at 2654 Gravois Avenue in St. Louis. And also, if you can't make it there, hop over on Zoom because it'll be held there also. So you can reserve your spot and register online at apscuhuru.org/study. That's apscuhuru.org/study. And if you're in the Philly area on Saturday, August 23rd, you can join the northern region of the African People's Socialist Party at the One Africa, One Nation Uhuru Flea Market at the historic Clark Park in West Philadelphia between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can shop among a variety of African vendors selling natural hair and skin products, African jewelry and clothing, books, vinyl records, all of it, y'all. So you can visit oneafricamarketphilly.org for more info. That's oneafricamarketphilly.org for more info there. So just one time zone away, back over in St. Louis. You can also join the One Africa, One Nation Farmers Market that will be taking place on Saturday, August 23rd at O'Fallon Park. And that's at 4343 West Florissant Avenue from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And the One Africa, One Nation Farmers Market is more than a market, y'all. It's a hub for Black-owned businesses, grassroots organizing, and African self-determination. So don't miss your chance to take part of this vibrant movement. So for other events and everything else that we got going on, you can visit theburningspear.com/events. And of course, we'll be keeping you updated on any of the socials. So make sure you're following us there.
Uhuru, that's right. Thank you so much for taking us through the announcement. If there's one thing you should know about the Uhuru movement is that we are not lacking for events. Okay, we are out there. So definitely visit the calendar to keep up with us. But that is it for today's show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Ring that little bell so you know we're live. We stream on the Burning Spear TV YouTube. We're on the Burning Spear Media Rumble channels and now on Black Power 96.3 FM.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. On the radio, y'all.
Right. So see you next week, comrades. One Africa, One Nation.
One Nation.